Welcome to the podcast. Súbele volumen. Conversation with the people who were with me. In the world of TV. Carlos tonight. Historias de un reportero. Carlos tonight. Dale que viene lo bueno.
Hey everyone, welcome to Carlos Tonight. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for watching and for listening. As you know, I had a great summer. I went to San Diego, California, and Miami, Florida, and then the family and I went to Colombia. It was a great time, and I am looking forward to sharing all those experiences with you in the coming weeks. Now, a lot of people wonder how I and others afford going to all these trips. The answer is simple: budgeting and savings. My guest this week helps people do just that and says it should start at a young age. Joining me now from Canada is Vianna to talk more about that. Hi, how are you?
Hi, thank you. Well, first I want to say thank you so much for having me here. It's a great opportunity. So my background is I'm a CPA here in Canada. I articled and did the firm life for a very long time, and I started a business called Kids Can Budget. You can find it at kidscanbudget.com, but basically the whole inspiration was that I truly believe that parents should start teaching their kids about money management from a very young age. When I first started the business, I did a survey of parents, and almost all of them, pretty much all of them, said they wish they had learned about it from a younger age and were more prepared and ready for adult life on their own. And so, yeah, I figured like this is so important to start talking about.
Now, I remember like in school, we had like a chapter that we learned about budgeting and we learned about savings, but it didn't really go in depth, I think. And so I feel like your program is very important. Tell us what other parents think about, starting really young, teaching our kids about, saving and then obviously budgeting.
Yeah, definitely. In Canada, here in our school system, growing up in school, I never really had a very in-depth education on it. Like there was never a specific course on financial literacy. And so a lot of it begins at home. And I find that similar to reading, financial literacy should begin at home. And that means being more open to talking about it at home. And that's what I've been finding when I chat with other parents. I have a YouTube series that I'm starting under my name, Vianna Summer, and I chat with other parents about this. And almost all of them say that they are thinking about it. They've learned from their own experience that not having this background becoming adults was really hard transition for them. And they don't want their kids to experience that. And they want to set their kids up with a better financial money mindset.
What's
so
your?
a lot.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just going to say that a lot of parents they do have this on their mind. They just don't know where to get started or when to get started.
I can imagine. What's your advice on the perfect age to just introduce our children to financial things?
Yeah, so I've been doing quite a bit of research for my business, and the main thing is that I've been reading that studies show that kids as young as 3 years old can start understanding money transactions and financial transactions. So that's not to say like you have to start at 3. Like every kid is a bit different. Some might be a little bit older, but some might be a bit younger. Like I have a 2-year-old daughter, and she can already count to 10
Okay.
at her age, which is fun. Like we do it a lot. We chat about counting a lot. So I don't know if it's that she's memorized it similar to her nursery rhymes, or if she actually truly understands it. But that's what I want to do with my business, is to encourage them to start younger and have a conversation younger and kind of gauge when they feel that they're ready, because every kid is a little bit different.
Why do you think it's so important that we teach children about being financially responsible?
As a society, I feel like we all struggle so much with so much debt. It's finances are probably a number one stressor in life. If you don't have it, if you don't manage it, And I think that if we can train this money mindset the way we start learning to read and learning our everyday manners in
Mhm.
society, if we can teach these money skills, these budgeting skills from a young age, I just think that our kids will be so much more set up for the future. And it's being, I don't know, being an adult is hard enough. Wouldn't it be nice to have money not be one of the worries?
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the first step we should do?
Yeah, so the first step would just be starting the conversation at home and making sure to, the key is remembering, trying to remember to bring it up. So, day to day conversations, if you have a 3 year old, a 5 year old, even an 8 year old at home, and you're thinking, and you're out at the store, you could involve them instead of like just having them follow along. You can involve them. Hey, like, oh, bananas are this price today. Like, how do you think that's expensive? Do you like, what do you think about this? Asking them questions constantly, asking them if they understand what they would like to learn about. One thing that I want to teach in my course is to make sure to gauge their interest level. Like if they're not interested at this age, then they won't want to learn it. So see, like try to incorporate it in things that they're interested in.
It's kind of like learning a different language. You start at a young age because I think that kids retain it more than if you were, a little bit older as an adult.
Yes, totally. And even things like if they really want to buy something, instead of just saying, no, we can't afford it, just say, okay, well, how do you think we should save up money to buy this toy that you want?
I have a nephew who they're both 18. They just turned 18, but I think for about a year now they've been doing the whole budgeting and
Amazing.
using a debit card and whatnot. And I noticed that one is more into like savings, and every Christmas present that's money or birthday, whatever, he likes to save it and then like purchase big items down the road. Um,
Oh, amazing.
is that like something that we should think about as far as like maybe giving them a debit card? When they're teenagers, of course.
Yeah. Um, Something that I encourage is that as soon as they're ready, like you can open up free, here in Canada at least, you can open up free savings accounts for kids.
Mm.
And one thing that I would love for parents to start doing is having that conversation with them, with their kids in terms of any money that comes in, whether it's a gift, whether it's earning money from chores, whether it's just pretty much any money that they possibly have, to encourage them to say, hey, okay, we have three categories for this money. You can save it, you can share it, or you can spend it. Let's allocate out this money, whatever, however much amount it is, into one of these three jars. And it's a really tricky situation where when we live in such a cashless society now, so it's really hard for them to physically understand where this money is going. So one thing I encourage with young kids is maybe doing like a big giant wall chart and drawing out the jars and saying, okay, we're going to put $1 in this jar and $1 in this jar. But it really builds up that money mindset, because as important as budgeting and saving is, I think it's equally important to learn how to spend your money and learn how to share your money. And that in terms of donations and just being a really helpful member to the community.
That's a good exercise for them to participate in, I feel.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think about having allowances for children?
Yes, so allowances, I always say, like, if this is working for your family, by all means, go for it. But I love teaching about building little entrepreneurs. And that, in all I mean, is on top of having their normal chores that they have, um, to be a helpful member of the family, they should also have the opportunity to earn their money and know that making like having this money comes from work, and there's a little bit of a pain point. So like I mentioned before, if they wanted a toy and they wanted to save it for it, maybe say Okay, let's do these 5 chores for these 2, 3 weeks and work your way towards saving for that toy. And ultimately let them buy that toy, because part of the learning process is the spending of the money. And for them, and if they deeply regret spending that money after, that is also part of the learning process, because the mistakes that they make at this age is so much smaller than making these same money mistakes as an adult. So let them feel that pain and hurt if you can at this age in terms of making money mistakes.
And that's a good segue to my next question, which was, what are some of the consequences of mismanaging, your money?
Yeah, so I mean, we all have friends and family and read in the news all the time about families that are in debt and struggling, and especially in this economy now, even finding work is hard. So like a lot of the times, instead of focusing on mismanaging money, I always like to try and focus on the benefits of managing your money and having a budget. And imagine if you had a life where you could have a 6 month runway of emergency savings. Imagine how that would have helped you through the pandemic. And that certainly helped my family, because that's something we do in my family. um, but imagine how much more you could breathe easily if you had these skills. And wouldn't it be nice for your kids to have these skills as well?
Absolutely. And so, with your program, do parents go to a website to sign up, or do you go to schools and kind of present your program?
Yeah, so what I am working on right now, so right now I have my website, kidscanbudget.com, and parents can go up there to sign up for an email list. And I also have a checklist, because one big thing is like parents just don't know when to start. So I have a free checklist for everyone that kind of talks about when your kid would be ready to sign up. And then I am currently actively working on launching a course, hopefully for the new year. And this will be the Kids Can Budget Academy, where it's a tool for parents to learn about teaching their kids about money. And it's also going to be a tool about working on their own money mindset as well.
How much of it is it like psychological when you're learning about financing?
Oh, huge amount. I feel like for everyone, money is very emotional. A lot of the decisions you make, the purchases you make, they're all based on emotion, what you like, what your needs are currently, but it's a very emotional thing. I think psychology builds into it a lot. I'd love to do a lot more research on that too. But part of my course having the parents money mindset module is because I do believe that kids learn so much, whether you are actively teaching it or not. They learn so much from their parents and seeing what they do. So if they see that their parents are huge spenders, then they'll probably grow up the same way,
Right,
right?
right.
So a big thing that I also like to talk about is about simple living and minimalism, because I do think that that goes hand in hand with budgeting.
Hmm.
With simple living and minimalism, it's setting priorities. And that's a huge part of setting priorities, or
Hmm.
of budgeting, is
Hmm.
setting priorities. Because we can aim to have everything that we want and need, but we can't have all the things.
Right. I think when I was in college is when I was introduced to credit cards.
Yeah.
And for me, it was just like, oh my God, I got so much money. And, I just wanted to spend it on everything.
Yes.
From like the little things like a piece of gum, like bubble gum, I would just swipe it. And then I learned, that's not the route to get to go. And that was a bad idea. But as you get older, you kind of learn all this and you do your research and you find out, I guess you have to learn your mistakes, right?
Yes. And imagine if you learned those mistakes at a younger age, how much further ahead we could all be financially.
Yeah, and I read articles about people in debt and there's so much money, and I was like, oh my God, like you said, if we only learn at a young age, and so tell us a little bit about how parents react to your workshop and your program that you offer.
Yeah. So most of the things that I've been doing is right now is with my interview series that I'm launching on YouTube.
Hmm.
And I find like it's so valuable to get their insight on what happens day to day. And so much of it is really interesting because it goes back to what they learned as a kid and what they know. And that's how, and whether it was not a good experience, so they're actively trying to figure out how to do better for their kids, or whether it was they did have a good experience but they just um, don't have an active program in place to start teaching them. So that's the biggest part of what I'm trying to help out with, and just inspiring and everyone to start at a younger age. And I do have a workbook that I sell on my website as well. And I found like parents have found this useful because there is a beginner section on your parents' mindset. So there's like a questionnaire on how you're feeling about money, and then there's a ton of activities for kids, and it's just basically ideas for how to bring this about into your day-to-day life and start talking about it regularly. A big thing I found interesting was that with a lot of parents, they had said that money was kind of almost taboo to talk about as young kids. Like we the consensus is that we're not sure whether it's just that they didn't want to talk about it because they thought that kids are too young to talk about it, or if they just didn't know how to talk about it or didn't have time to talk about it. But the general consensus was that it wasn't talked about for our parents' generation.
Yeah.
So yeah, just having that mindset of, hey, this is okay to talk about. Like, it's not to say like you have to share every little detail and scare them,
Right, right.
but it is great to have them know, hey, like utilities cost this much, or food costs this much, and this is how we work to provide.
Hmm.
And it's also saying like this comes from hard work, like mom and dad have it handled, but it does come from hard work. And just letting them know that and understand that from a young age, I think is
Hmm.
quite important.
Absolutely. I'm lucky enough to have a dad who loves to budget. He loves working on, the numbers. And so it's great when we get the opportunity to go grocery shopping because he does the grocery shopping.
Yeah.
So we go and he's like, okay, here's my budget. And then he buys all the things that the family needs. And I just sit back and like watch him like at the grocery store picking and looking at
Amazing.
prices and stuff. And I was like, that's awesome. And he taught us at a very young age, when you go shopping, you kind of pick up the item and say, do you really need this now or can it wait? And then you go and save your money. So been blessed to have that, and I hope that a lot of parents are out there, are doing the same thing, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so amazing that you grew up with that, because that's the whole part of the parent's mindset.
Hmm.
Even if he didn't actively teach you that, by you watching him, you probably learned so much about budgeting and being more mindful. And that one decision at the grocery store carries on to all other aspects of your life. So that's wonderful that you had a dad who did that.
Absolutely. And now I can go and on vacation and go places that I want to go, right?
Yes, amazing.
Tell us again where we can find your website and connect with you.
Yeah, so my website is kidscanbudget.com. My YouTube channel, where I talk about a bunch of things like simple living, but mainly provide tips and inspiration for budgeting. And I also chat with other parents about teaching about money management to kids. My YouTube is under Vianna Summer. And I also have a Facebook page for Kids Can Budget, and it's just at Kids Can Budget. But the main part is, if you want to get on my email list through kidscanbudget.com, then you will be on a wait list for my upcoming course, which I'm very excited to share.
That's awesome, Vianna. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing. And of course, I'll be putting all your information in the show notes so people can connect and sign up. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. God bless you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for watching and for listening. Remember, you can check out my website, carlostonight.com, for more information on the podcast, see upcoming guests, and check out past episodes. That's carlostonight.com.